Before I start talking about mortgage foreclosures, I want to backtrack for 1 second. The tax foreclosure, there's also a couple other kind of interesting strategies that we employ. One of them is I call like kind of cherry picking the list. So when that paper comes out for the tax sales, this is something else we might try to do later. This is just some information for you guys. It's going to be a little bit harder to manage to have you guys do this. But when that list comes out, all right, you have all these people who haven't paid their taxes, they're behind on their taxes. Like I said, 60 to 70% of them pay them off, right? But there's a certain percentage of them that don't get paid off that are going to the auction and there's a lot of good houses in there. Well, one thing we do I call cherry pick. All the good ones on the list, we go out to the people that own the properties and say, hey, obviously you're way behind on your payment here. You're not able to make your tax payment. How about this? I'll pay your taxes off for you and give you an additional 5 or 10 grand. Just deed the property over to me. Because these people have obviously already given up on it, right? They haven't paid taxes in 3 years. It's going to go to the auction. And if it's a real good one, I know say the taxes are 20 grand. And I know it's going to get bid up to at least 100. I go attack those and say, hey, owner, you don't have a loan on the property. You're way behind on the taxes. You're all screwed up. You're not going to get any value on this deal. I'll pay your taxes for you. Here's another check for 10 grand. Here's a deed. Deed it over to me now. So one way I try to circumvent going to these auctions and getting bid way up is going to cherry pick them. So this is something that maybe we can even intertwine later. It's going to be a little bit harder to manage for you guys because it's a little bit more time intensive. But that's one way we kind of pick these things off. And another thing that's really interesting is this. And maybe we can explore this later. I'm just doing this for knowledge right now. But at the tax sales, I'm going to recycle some paper, it looks like here. Do we have more of this paper? Sony will give me some. Okay. So at the tax sale, let's say this. This only works if there's no mortgage on the property. Let's say the taxes were $4 grand. Okay? Back taxes are $4 grand. There's no loan. All right, against this property. It's free and clear. Taxes are $4 grand. This thing gets bid up to 10 grand. Okay? So taxes were 4, it gets bid to 10. So here's the deal. By law, the county can only get what's owed to them in taxes, $4 grand. Anything over that, this 10 grand, this 6 grand spread, the county doesn't legally get that money. Actually, John Smith, who owns this property, is entitled to anything over the taxes because his property just sold for 10 grand. He only had a lien on it for 4 from the county. The spread should theoretically go to him. But counties in America are so nice and so greedy and so terrible. They don't ever tell Joe Smith. They don't call Joe Smith up or send him a letter. Hey, say, hey, Joe, guess what? We sold your property and there's 6 grand sitting in escrow here for you. They never say this. It sits in their account, in their escrow account. If Joe Smith finds out, he finds out. If he doesn't, he doesn't. After 7 years, it defaults. County gets it. So I realized the county was doing this. So what I started having my guys do was go to all the counties we bought in. We looked for every property that was free and clear that sold at a spread. And so we would go around to people and say, hey, Joe Smith, your property sold at the tax sale for $4 grand. Oh, yeah, I know it sold. I didn't want it. I was in Arizona, and I live over here in Minnesota, and I'm getting weed assessments. Okay, great. Well, it sold for 4. Yeah. Okay, yeah, start there. Yeah. It sold for 4, and there's 10. I don't ever tell them this, but I say, Joe, your property sold at the tax sale, and there may be some additional funds that you're due to you. And my company does this. We collect funds for people who have money owed to them. So we have a one-page agreement. I say, listen, if I'm able to find any funds or collect funds on your behalf that you may have, then I get 20, 30, 40, 50% of those funds. And so one business model we created is we run all over the country and find this, and I go to people's houses, and I say, we may have some funds for you. Sign this and tell me you're going to give me X percentage. And then I just go down to the county, and I collect these funds for them. I take a check down there, and I get a check. Now, the problem was I started doing this real heavy. Nobody was doing it in the early 2000s. I started doing this real heavy. And every time I would train someone in my office to do this, they just quit and go do it on their own. Because it's real simple, right? All you got to do is figure a couple things out. And I'm paying this guy 50 grand a year to do this. All of a sudden, he's collecting 100 grand for me a month. It's like, well, crap. So I couldn't keep any of my employees. So I started trying to compartmentalize it better, where I had one guy going out delivering the note, one guy doing the research. I didn't want anybody to know what the whole process looked like, right? I had everybody doing 5 different things. So I started doing that. But the counties, and this just pisses me off, they've all started changing their laws to not allow third parties to get this money. Joe Smith's got to go get it himself now. And the only reason is because they're greedy. They didn't care about giving Joe Smith any money before. At least I'm giving him 60, 70, 50% of his money. These guys just want to keep it all. So that window's closing for us as well. But it's just another example of this whole tax foreclosure thing has so many aspects to it that are powerful. It's just if someone has knowledge in an inefficient market, you can capitalize on it, right? And that's all this is. But so that's an additional business model. Not that we're going to run that together. I just wanted you guys to kind of see another dynamic of what goes on here. And heck, I used to collect a lot of money like that. We collected around the country. We collected like $2.9 million in 2005 doing that. And you know, you just missed a really good story, Carter. You missed quite possibly the best thing that I've talked about.
Can you please redo that?
Well, you have to look at it on tape. It's actually, I'll sell you a version of the tape. It's $10,000. He might. It's actually one of the best business models of all time. It really is. Problem is, it's hard to keep employees. They all just quit. So it's so easy to make so much money if you train someone to do the thing I just taught. They quit every time. So whatever. So that just shows you a little bit of power. So two other business models to think about: the cherry picking and the spread. These are two additional models that just spring off this thing. So that could get your brain going a little bit. Okay, so let's change gears a little bit here. Mortgage foreclosure, all right? Mortgage foreclosures in almost every state in America go like this. Ooh, I don't like black. Yeah, whatever. Okay, the mortgage foreclosure, similar to the tax foreclosure, is at the courthouse steps in most of these counties, just like the one in Kansas City there. So in a mortgage foreclosure, for it to work, you got to put it in the same paper. In Kansas City, it's the pulse. Let's just stay with Kansas City because that's what we're doing. So for 30 days, it has to be publicized in a paper. So for 30 days, lawyers go in these publications and say, here I am, Tom Smith and Associates. I'm representing Wells Fargo Bank for property 123 Main Street with legal description this. And on 5/1/2013 or whatever it is, at the courthouse steps, this property is going to go up for sale. As long as it's in there for 30 days and they've mailed the certified receipts, certified mails, certified mail to all interested parties. So they do the certified mail to all the interested parties, do the 30-day publication, boom, they go up to the sale, they cry the sale on the courthouse steps, someone from the law firm goes down, they usually have 40, 50 properties a day, each law firm, 3 or 4 law firms kind of specialize in a given area. These guys go down, they usually go at the same time every day, 11 o'clock or 1 o'clock, and they sit there and cry the sale at the steps. If you're an investor and you have cash, you can come down and pay for the property. Similarly, you need to do the research and make sure you're buying the first lien. Make sure there's, the superiority. Make sure there's no federal tax lien above you. Remember, I put this on the board. Federal tax lien was 1, state tax liens 2. I bought one off the mortgage foreclosure steps that had already been bought at a mortgage or a tax sale, remember? So when I'm researching the mortgages, I got to make sure I don't have a federal lien above me or a state lien above me. That's the first thing. And then make sure I'm buying the first mortgage, not the second, third, or fourth. Because in America, we stack them up. 1 mortgage, 2 mortgage. And in the first one, here's something in America people don't understand too. Like my mom, she's like, well, I got a first deed of trust on my house and a second deed of trust. She can never figure out which one's her first or second because her second is for $100,000 and her first is for 50, right? So it's like, wait, but people think, is the biggest one first? No, it's whichever one was recorded first. It's by the date of recording. I don't care if you recorded one for $1 yesterday and one for $500 million today. In succession of date of recording, that's how you distinguish first, second, or third mortgage. It's a time thing, not a dollar thing. Does that make sense? It's chronological. So we need to make sure no state liens, no federal tax liens, and make sure we're buying the first mortgage, right? So if we're buying the first, it knocks everything off behind it. So, as long as there's nothing above it, then we knock everything off below it. So, and again, I'm not going to go too deep into mortgage foreclosures. This is just going to be a real quick brush over on this because there's going to be an additional class for this, but I just kind of want to talk to you guys about this. And this is another thing, Kartik, that I want to implement that we might be able to start taking people to do mortgage for. Let's start with the tax sale. If it works real good, we'll start doing the mortgage foreclosure sales. But so the mortgage foreclosure sales, it's in the pulse. It's all publicized the same way. But these are great for me because they go every week, right? So the previous week I get a list of 40. We work that list real quick. I look at the list of 40. Okay, here's the 10 in the neighborhoods that I like. My guys go out, look at those 10 real quick. They size them up. We do the rehab estimates. We see if anybody lives in them. And then we, the same thing. We do the rehab quotes. Come back in, see if the numbers work. My guys go to auction with a max bid amount. Here's a property, for example. This property is at 7592 Walnut in Kansas City, all right? Which I just bought this property about 2 weeks ago. This property started on the courthouse steps. I mean, this is how crazy mortgage foreclosures are in America, too. It's weird. The lender cannot bid more than the outstanding principal balance plus attorney's fees and interest, okay? So let's say on this house, the loan was like $100,000. And interest and attorney's fees and stuff were probably about 116, everything all together. But the banks, some of them just want to dump these assets so bad at the mortgage foreclosure sale, they short the sales is what we call it. It's a hybrid of a short sale. There's a short sale in America, which we won't go into today, but they short this sale at the auction, meaning they have a loan for $100,000 on it, but they just want to dump it, so they start the bid at $20,000, just because they know it'll catch every investor's eye, and they just want it to go to auction, highest and best, let's go. I just want this asset off my books today. That happens about 5% of the time. So every day, that's what I'm looking for at the auctions, because it's like this. Here's the only properties I could possibly buy in a mortgage foreclosure sale. All right? Something with, let's say, if a mortgage was from 2010, right, for $150K, let's say, right, and here it is 2013, okay, how much of that loan's paid down really in the last 3 years, right? And let's say market value is 150. Okay, that's my market value. Okay, so this guy bought it in 2010 for 150. Market value still 150. So I'm looking at this thing wanting to buy it. Maybe I like the neighborhood, but with interest and attorney's fees, this might be 165. So I'm over market. So this thing doesn't really work real good for me. But what if this loan was from 1980? Okay, well that's dang near, okay, it'd probably be paid off. Let's call it 1988. Okay, so that's 13 years minus 2, so that's 25 years ago, right? So this thing had a $150,000 loan 25 years ago, and the market value today is 150. Well, this thing's amortized way down because the bank, maybe there's only $20,000 left of principal plus my attorney's fees plus my interest, right? So maybe this opening bid's 25K. So I'm looking for the old loans, right? Because these have amortized down, so the opening bids are low compared to what the values are today. So these newer loans are a little bit harder to buy because they haven't been paid down as much, right? The principal hasn't been paid down. So that's one thing, we're looking for the old loans, but not always. Because this 2010 loan, this bank might open the bid at $40,000 and just say, whatever, let's just see what happens. So those are the two things we're looking for at the mortgage foreclosure sales. Old loans that have been paid down, so we're trying to capture the equity, or ones that they're shortened. This one here represents one. Actually, you know what? I rehabbed this house here in 2005. I just realized that, but nevertheless. So this property here had a $100,000 loan. They started the bid at $20,000. I can't tell you the rhyme or reason why the mortgage companies do this sometimes. I love it when they do it because I want to go get aggressive and bid on this thing. This thing went from $20,000 to $60,000. Okay, I bought this one for $60,000. Sent my guys over. As you see, we had to rebuild the front porch. This is in a nice neighborhood. It's probably it's a 190 to 210 retail. It's a nice, like, first-time homeowner, good school type neighborhood. My rehab quote for my guy was $37,500, right? So I know I'm going to be into it for no more than 100. Worst case scenario, I sell it for 180. You know, not a bad deal for me. It'll probably take me 3 months, right?
If there is second mortgage,
gone.
You will not pay.
It goes away. So the second mortgage holder sometime, if the first, okay, let's say this. Let's say in my example here, this first was 150. Maybe there's a second for $20,000. A lot of times, because the person in second position has to get mail. He has to be certified mail receipt because he has interest in the property. A lot of times the guy from the second will show up because the only way to protect your second is to buy that first. If you don't buy that first, whoever bought that first just knocked you off. That's how it works. So that happens sometimes. A lot of times the guy in the second position will show up to try to buy it off. So, but if they don't, it knocks them off. That's how that works. So this one didn't have a second, but if it did, it would have gone away. So, you know, pretty good deal, pretty good retail deal. We'll be into it for about 100. We sell it for about 180. It takes 3 or 4 months. It's a good deal. But we sell this to homeowners, right? This is a homeowner neighborhood. I don't put a renter in here. I don't do any of that stuff. This is that retail, buy, fix, retail. So this isn't something I do with a lot of the 21st century clients, but this is something that I might want to start working with the 21st century clients too. It's the same concept as going to the tax sale, but I bought this on Monday, got the deed on Thursday, I'm working on it on Friday. It all starts in 1 week, right? But I usually don't get as big a discounts. And this plays better in the homeowner type neighborhood. So this play would be buy it, fix it up, sell it to homeowner. Or buy it, fix it up, listen, this thing would rent for $1,800 a month. So if you're into it for $100,000, you get $1,800 a month in rent. It's good cash flow. I just do the retail model out here because everybody wants to live in this area because it's great schools. You know, it's like I can sell it to a homeowner like this. So But this is another play that I want to think about possibly doing with 21st century clients too. And again, this is kind of just a little quick teaser on this deal. This isn't what we were meant to talk about today. But I want you guys to see that there's a lot of power in this mortgage foreclosure thing too. And I'm going to tell you this, I'm going to tell you a good story. It's going to go back into the example I gave you on the taxes about the extra money. There's a property that this lady owned. This was back in 2000. Her mortgage was from 1978. Okay? That was when her loan was from. This was 2000. Her old mortgage was whatever. I don't recall what it was. But there was only like $14K left to be paid on that mortgage, right? Well, the house was in a neighborhood that was like $250K market. It probably needed about 60 in work. So this was a good home run house. If I could have got it for 14, 60, 74, 250, wow, great deal. Wasn't going to work that way. I went down, bid this property up. I ended up getting it for, I think, about 80 grand. Let's just say 80. So this thing got bid up to 80, right? So we got it for 80K, but guess what? Same thing as in the tax foreclosure thing I just told you. She only owed 14 remaining. It went for 80. So when this thing sells, the mortgage company's only allowed to get their 14K plus interest and attorney's fees, right? So this extra money went to this lady here, okay? This was the very first time I realized this. This woman that owned this house, she was an old lady, was going to get this difference between here and here. Well, this is what triggered my brain on this. She lived next door. We bought this house. I got there, met her. She gave me the keys to the house. I was like, why'd you let it go? She was like 90 years old. She said, I just don't care about this house anymore. My sons are all passed away. I don't care. I have no one to pass anything to. It was a pain in my butt. They're not going to come after me. I just let it go. So she gave me the keys to the house. She was really sweet. We started working on it. She lived next door. And then 2 days later, she was like, hey, she came over. This was when I used to like really go to the houses and look at them myself. And she came up, she's like, listen, I got this check in the mail for $67,000. It was something. And she was like, well, I feel bad. Do you guys want me to give you this money? And I was like, well, we don't really, we paid 80 for it. And she's like, well, I didn't want the house anyways. I was just going to let it go. And I never realized, this is what started me thinking about the tax difference. This is when I first thought of it. I was like, well, what do you mean? And so I started doing the numbers. I was like, holy hell, this girl got the difference back. So it got me thinking about it. And I was young in 2000. I'm younger than I am now. And so I started thinking, wow, so this woman actually gave me this check for $67,000. I was like, well, if you want to give it to me, she's like, I don't care. You just overpaid for the house. So she gave us the check. I went and cashed and got the money back. So I effectively did get it for 14 grand when I wasn't due this money. But a whole nother business model, again, is guys going around capturing that same spread here, just like I was talking about on the tax foreclosures. The same set of circumstances, but banks, isn't this crazy? Banks are held to a standard. If they take this extra money, they within 72 hours, they have to give the extra proceeds back to the owner. But it's really weird that the counties don't have to contact anybody. So the people that make the laws say, okay, bank, if you do this, you got to pay them back in 72 hours. But the people that make the laws never pay them back. But nevertheless, that same set of circumstances, that same conundrum is here. So another business model is people going around to capture the spread. And what guys do, they sit down at the auction and they wait for the ones like this, the real old mortgages where people bid them up over, and they write them down. They sprint out to these people's houses as fast as they can, and they say, listen, same thing. You may have some money coming at 123 Main Street or whatever it is. Here's what we can do to help you get this money. They have them sign some agreement. They run down to the law office that day and help them get the check faster. But really, they're stealing money from these people. I don't like that whole method because you're taking advantage of somebody. The other method, you're just getting people money that the county's robbing them for. But this whole thing kind of works there. Yeah, the money's coming anyway, so you're just a crook, right? You're just some guy who took advantage of a situation and then did it. Right, but the counties, I'd love to take money from them. They're crooks. They're the ones that are the crooks. So in the other circumstance, you're helping somebody get money that they never would have got otherwise. They'd never know. The county, as a matter of fact, doesn't want them to know. I mean, that's why they try to change some of the rules. So I just wanted you to see how this whole thing works. But the mortgage foreclosure thing's a lot cleaner, right? Like, you get this, 3 or 4 days later, the deed comes in the mail, you're working on the property, but I had to evict somebody out of this one, right? Somebody talked about evictions. Almost every time, like, this house had a person living in it. But same thing, we rolled up to the house, hey, I'll give you $400 if you move out next week. Can you be out next week? And usually they're like, yes, thank you so much. I knew I was losing my house. My life's over. I lost my job. Oh, my God. And so I'm like, well, here, I'll pay for your moving truck, whatever. And they're usually pretty happy because, it's a lot better than what other people are going to do. They're just going to go through the foreclosure process or eviction. So we gave them cash for keys. But I just want this to be something that you think about, Kartik, and everybody in the room. This could be another additional model too.
You meet to the bank in the court.
You say what?
Where do you meet the bank? You say that, okay,
I never meet the bank here. They hire an attorney. So the banks hire law firms. They go to the courthouse and they just have a piece of paper and they just read it, just like the tax foreclosure auction. They just read them off, and if you want to buy them, you give them a cashier's check right there. And that lawyer acts on behalf of the bank. They take the money and then they do what's called a successor trustee deed, which is they take ownership from the bank and throw it to you under the foreclosure laws. So it's foreclosed, you bought it. Foreclosure laws allow that attorney to take title from the owner, who's Joe Smith, to you underneath the foreclosure of the mortgage.
so you have contacts with the attorneys.
The attorneys go to they're just at the steps and they're crying. So yeah, that's your contact right there. You just go there but we buy so many with them that we have good contacts there. Yes, very good contacts. Because we buy every day down there. They know us.
Do they get auctioned the same way, or do they just read the price of what they need and then like in repayments?
It starts off either what they need in repayments or some short thereof. They can do that much or below. They can't go over, right? And it's the same thing. A guy up there, it's a little different because they don't do quite as many. There's thousands the other way. This guy's got 20 or 30. He just does sheets. This is an auction today on the 26th day of April and for default in the payment of debt for the amount of $1,798.68 for John Smith's property at 123 Main Street with legal description being the south 24 feet of lot 36 block, blah, blah, blah. They just do all this stuff for a while. Do I have anybody who wants to bid on the property as a whole? Yes, I do. What's your opening bid? It's got to be at least $1 over whatever the bank opened at. And then you guys just battle back and forth. And this is a lot more investors do this than do the tax sale because it's immediate, right? And it's easier for people to understand. Mom and pop show up all the time to this thing. Tax sale's a little bit more intricate. A lot of people show up, but they're just watching. Down here, it's a lot of people actually trying to bid. So you got 6 or 7 guys doing the thing, boom, 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 boom. And you just bid it up to, if it works, it works. If not, not. Like I said, this one went from 20 to 60 grand. So I bid this one I would have gone to 95. Our number was 95 on this. My guy got it for 60.
So does it happen in the court?
No, it's done. The lawyer, there's documents filed in the court, okay, before the foreclosure. Before the foreclosure actually is on the steps being cried, like 2 or 3 months before, there's documents filed with the court, then another set of documents filed before the actual date that they're crying it. The date they cry the sale, once that sale's cried and there's money exchange place, that thing's done. Then that attorney files the last document to revert title to you and takes 3 to 4 days, and then it's done. You never have to go to court. You never have a confirmation hearing. You get the deed 3 days later, it's yours. All the work's been done before because the banks hire those lawyers to do all that work before. You don't have to take care of any of that. It's all done.
They have to declare the opening bid.
The opening bid is the bank every time.
Clear.
They have to clear the opening bid. That's right.
Here
Yep.
it is not. Here the agents can tell whatever it is.
Oh, okay, yeah, they have to clear the opening bid. You have to. But the bank sets their bid, and it can't be any more than what they have into it. It can be less, but not more. That's it.
So Carl, if I bought that house and did the same thing you're doing with it,
Yep.
and then I sold it and actually rolled that money into another purchase,
Mhm.
I would be liable for any tax in
Not if you use the 1031 exchange structure, you would not.
But you end up paying tax when you sell the rollover asset, because if you make the profit on this deal, you roll it over to the new property, and when you sell that property, you'll end up paying tax.
Oh, but you can
It's
do it
a
again, but you can
rollover
keep doing it, but you can roll it 40
Yeah,
times.
yeah, exactly.
You can roll it till the day you die. Someone's gonna pay it sometime.
Can you roll into 2 properties?
No, one,
Be one.
yeah, one like or greater, same or greater. It's a similar like as property with equal to or greater market value. I think that's how the law is written.
And is it more tax after 12 months and before 12 months? Or is
I don't think we have any of that 12-month, 5-month, like what you guys are talking about here. I mean, I flip in 1 day or 100 days, it's all the same. Yep. So yeah, I just wanted to tease a little bit on the mortgage foreclosure. I wanted to kind of teach you some of the nuances of the tax foreclosure. Again, this was just like an introductory video. You guys were like the first guys to get to see this. You know, you guys are gonna have priority because you're the first ones here at the tax sale. I already told Kartik if a bunch of people want to do this, I want the people who came to the room to have first priority pick at the tax sale. I want it to be that way. And we can move forward from there. But again, we're just kind of putting this thing together. I know there's a lot of value here, and this is kind of the start of it. But I like stuff like this better because I get to teach people things, right? I mean, all this stuff's cool. You wouldn't be here if you didn't think this was cool. I think it's cool too. So, yeah. So, I mean, I thank you guys for coming. I'm not trying to bore you with a lot of details. We're gonna have, part 3, 4, 5, 6 where I get even deeper into this thing, right? I just brushed a broad stroke, give you some things to think about. If you got questions, email Kartik. I'll answer them. But, you know, we're just going to keep moving forward with this deal. I think it's going to be a really powerful thing. I mean, for people who want to, if anything, you just get educated, right? I mean, education's, what's the price tag on education? I don't know. No one can ever take your brain. So the more you know, more powerful you are. So.
In that last situation, it was an old lady or something to that one.
Yeah.
But could it be that it's someone who perhaps lost a job temporarily or whatever and that couldn't pay a mortgage, but then you bought it?
Rent it back to them?
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what? That always sounds good, but I kick them out every time. Because I'm thinking this, if your mortgage was $500 a month or whatever, or $1,000, I'm going to rent it for more than what your mortgage was to you back, usually, right? And everybody tells me like, oh, I lost my job and next week I'm getting a new one. I can make, I don't want to hear any of it really. Every once in a while, I've done it. But generally speaking, it sounds good, but they never pay.
They couldn't pay their mortgage.
That's what I'm saying. They won't pay.
I was saying that 10% because they're in hospital or something.
Yeah, maybe someone who's, maybe, listen, we had one time a lady had been in the hospital. She got out and then got disability, right? And her disability check was coming, like she showed me the paperwork. Listen, I don't have any money because I got messed up, but the government's going to start giving me $2,000 a month because I fell off the back of this truck and whatever, you know, she worked for the government. And so I was like, okay, well, I could see it. I kept her in there and she had been a good tenant. But that's one time out of a million. I mean, usually it just doesn't work very good. But I try to be compassionate too, kind of. You know, I listen to, but everybody lies. You know, after you've heard the same lies so many times, I mean, and my compassion goes away. It's like, hey, I'm nicer than the bank. Okay, I'm giving you money to go away. I'm trying to help you move. You know,
So they move to a cheaper neighbourhood, they can afford it?
I have no idea where those people moved.
I mean, I wouldn't get money back from the bank, would they? They lost it.
They lost. Yeah, they're done.
They didn't meet the obligation.
Yeah, they're dead in the water. I don't have a lot of sympathy for any of them really. I mean, it's just like whatever. You know, go somewhere else. You didn't pay your mortgage. It's not my fault. You know, I can't. Right. So, but sometimes I buy these houses. You know, okay. Like here's an example though. Like sometimes somebody will be in the house, and the owner will have just taken a new refinance for way too much money on the property. Say it was a $100,000 property, and somehow he got a $200,000 loan, right? And the bank shorted it to $50,000 or something, so I'm into it for 70 or 80. And somebody's in there like, listen, I've been paying $1,200 a month for 2 years, and I can show you my receipts and everything. The problem was the new owner, the $1,200 a month didn't cover his new mortgage payment, right? He was somebody that just cashed out real quick. Because in America, they don't come after you for the money. They just take your house. So if you're cash poor and you got 10 houses, you just try to go refinance them real quick, take a bunch of cash, let them go, walk away, right? So sometimes owners have refinanced them so high that rental amount doesn't cover their mortgage. They don't give a shit. They're keeping the money for the rent until it forecloses, and they kept the refinance money. So sometimes the renter actually does pay rent, and they're like, it didn't cover the old mortgage, but it'll cover a new one. And so I'm like, okay, you know, if they can prove to me they've been paying, I'll do that. That's a situation I will do. So that one, and sometimes if someone's been in a hospital and they got, like the lady I told you fell off the truck. But again, that's 1 in a million. That doesn't happen often.
They'll be able to get the money before you do it.
Yeah, yeah. So, again, I appreciate you guys coming. You know, I want to teach more on this. I want to do more of the studies. I want to do more.
Have you guys think of how this model is gonna run?
Kartik and I are doing that this week.